Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 586 to 587 for the 2nd to the 3rd of October. Yesterday I wanted to do the SITREP. After I finished mapping, I was like really tired. I just went to sleep. Yeah. So anyway, so let's do the SITREP. There's nothing over at the southern front in the Kherson region. We move on over to the Zaporizhia front. Zaporizhia front, and over at the Orikhiv, no, we go to the Kayamsky sector first. Kayamsky sector, we have a geolocation of Ukrainian forces north of Zarybyanki. Over here, so that corroborates our mapping to be correct. The northern area here within this forest line, this is under Ukrainian control. But no change in terms of the front line, it's just a geolocation. Over at the Orikhiv sector, this is Orikhiv. At the Orikhiv sector, we have multiple geolocation of Ukrainian forces south of Novoandriivka. In the southwestern part of Novodanilivka, there's two of them. And this shows that the Ukrainians are in these areas here. So, and there's another one near the front line. This is actually near towards Kopani, geolocation by military summary. Over this region here, this actually caused us to change the front line a bit. This shows that the Ukrainians actually have this tree lines around here. So we have a weird report from Rusic army, a pro-Russian source reporting that there is fighting north of Robotine. So we will continue to see where in the north, because north of Robotine is all Ukrainian controlled. So it's a bit weird that they say north. So I wonder if it's this direction or this direction. It's not clear. Over in the southern part of Robotine, Deep State UA and Marashenikov both reported that the Russians are counterattacking near Novoprokopivka in the direction of Robotine, and Surya Maps also reported this. All this happened on the 2nd of October, and then the fighting in the north of Novoprokopivka was reported by Marashenikov. So Marashenikov, this pro-Ukrainian source, reported the very bullish information, very positive information from the Ukrainian side. They talk about the Ukrainians entered into the central part of the village. Fighting is reported in the north and the eastern part. He said that there are certain parts that is controlled by the Ukrainians, but it's not a foothold. So based on this information, there is fighting over in the north and in the east, which means the Ukrainians have entered all this region here, and there is some Ukrainian forces even entered all the way into the central part. But the entire zone is still pretty much under combat. They are still fighting, and it's unclear how to read this information accurately, because we also have this information about Russians counterattacking towards Robotine. So it's kind of weird. It's just kind of weird. So let's see how this goes. No one has talked about this except Marashenikov. We over at the Verbove region, we have fighting reported towards Verbove by the Ukrainians from the 2nd to the 3rd of October. Deep State UA, Marashenikov. Then on the 3rd is the Ryba and Rusic army. So the Ukrainian sources reported the 2nd of October. The Russian sources reported 3rd of October. All is talking about the Ukrainians trying to advance towards Verbove. However, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 2nd of October reported that the Russians actually counterattacked. But it was not reported on the 3rd, so largely it looks like the tide of war over at Verbove, the initiative is still on the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainians are still the one pushing over in this area here. But as per mentioned in previous SITREPs, it does feel like the pace is slowing. The tempo, the intensity of the Ukrainian offensive has slowed by quite a bit. There is fighting reported northwest of Verbove on the 2nd of October, according to Surya Maps. They claim some change movement in terms of the front line by the Ukrainians. However, not much. There is purely based on the geolocation by Crimea Caprice that shows Ukrainian forces over on this other tree line. Previously, the front line was around here, so they moved to the next tree line, and that's pretty much it. So there must be some kind of push in this area here. However, north of it, in the southeastern part of Mala Tomashka, this is Mala Tomashka. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that Russians were attacking in the northeastern part of Mala Tomashka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So the Russians are seemingly pushing in this direction while the Ukrainians were pushing in the south. Yeah, no. So we have to just take it with a pinch of salt. We move on into the next zone with news is Velika Novosibirsk. In the Velika Novosibirsk sector, there is continued exchange of attacks at Priodny, with the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, with the Russian Defense Ministry reported Ukrainian attacks. From the 2nd of October, and Ryba also reported that Vostok Group of Forces reported Ukrainian attacks on the 3rd. The Russians are attacking on the 2nd. It's mainly a counterattack after the Ukrainians attack at Priodny. And there is Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported fighting in the south of Rivnopil, and there is also fighting reported near Staromayorsky. So the Ukrainians claiming that the Russians are pushing in these directions, and also we have these clashes of forces over at Priodny, and there is also another attack reported east of Urzaini, and this is reported by Surya Maps and Ryba, both claiming that the Russians have made some progress over in the eastern part of Urzaini. So that's about it from Velika Novosibirsk. We move on into the Donetsk front. At the Donetsk front, there is fighting reported in the Novomihailivka region, with the Russians continue to be attacking from the 2nd to the 3rd, according to the Ukrainian sources, whereas the neutral and Russian sources actually reported that the Ukrainians are the one actually doing the offensive. So it's unclear who is correct, Ukrainians or the Russians are pushing. Yeah, up to you. There is some geolocations, however, around Novomihailivka. It's mainly Ukrainian forces. Geolocation by Crimea Caprice and military summary, with the geolocation in these two positions. A bit of distance from the front line, so it's just a routine confirmation that the Ukrainians are still over there. Over at Marinka, we have the Ukrainian Defense Ministry continue to report that the Russians are pushing within Marinka. I was wrong that I thought that they will capture it within a week, and they did not. So no, I'm not sure what the Russians are doing. So they can't even take over this small part. It just shows that the Ukrainians are very determined to make sure that the Russians do not get this win. Over in the north of Marinka, we have geolocation of some assault by Crimea Caprice. That shows this is where the front line is, where the Russians are pushing in this north of this warehouse region. And there's another two geolocations nearby, by military summary, and the other one by Crimea Caprice, which shows that the Ukrainian forces actually have this tree line, probably most of it, and they have this road, and they probably have this tree line as well. So this shows that the Russians actually hold the line maybe around here, and this is where the lines are actually. So we move on into the Adivka front. This is the Adivka front. At the Adivka front, we have Ukrainians taking some grounds in the eastern part of Nevelsky. Russian Defense Ministry, Deputy US Surya Maps, Ryba all reported about this Ukrainian attacks on the 2nd of October, where they captured some grounds around here. However, the Ukrainian sources, I think even Russian sources, it's Ukrainian sources, Maroshinikov and Ukrainian Defense Ministry both reported the next day that the Russians are pushing at Pervomaisky in this direction. So yeah, it's pretty independent of each other in terms of the actions. Over at the Severny region, interesting geolocations by Crimea Caprice showing that the Ukrainian forces are at this position. This actually invalidates the previous front line that the Russians have come to very close to Severny. Looks like there were some offensive actions over at Severny that captured the tree lines around here, forcing the Russians back into this defensive position, this fortified position around here. However, this is very close because the Ukrainians are geolocated in this area here, so the front line pretty much looks something like this. So yeah, the Ukrainians are definitely doing pretty decently in the tactical sense around the Adivka region. There is fighting reported at Opitne, with the Russians trying to attack from Opitne. However, did not work out, and the next day Ukrainians counterattack, according to Maroshinikov. So yeah, pretty much a stalemate over at the Opitne region. There is fighting reported from Krudobauka towards Adivka, according to Deep State UA on the 2nd of October. And this was somewhat corroborated that the Russian Defense Ministry said that the Ukrainians attacked in the area of Elievka. So it's actually Andrievka. Okay, so this information is actually not correct. Okay, yeah, ignore that. Over in the north, there is fighting reported towards Stepove on the 2nd of October, according to Ukrainian Defense Ministry. And there is fighting reported at Krasnohorivka, according to the... sorry, I'm confused with my shortcuts. The Russian Defense Ministry and Ryba, both Russian sources, saying that the Ukrainians are attacking Krasnohorivka. So there is this conflicting information. So let's see how this goes. I lean towards that the Ukrainians are the one attacking Krasnohorivka instead of the Russians pushing for Stepove. Because yeah, I just don't feel that the Russians are on the offensive. We move on into the Bakhmut front. In the southern part of the Bakhmut front, the Ukrainians continue their offensive over at Kodyomivka and Drievka. Southeastern part of Klishchiivka, on the eastern part of Klishchiivka, as well in the north of Klishchiivka. The Ukrainians are mainly the one on the offensive. Kodyomivka is reported by Ryba on the 2nd of October. And then at Andrievka, we have the Russians trying to counterattack, reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry and Ryba. So the Russians are pushing towards Andrievka with the Ukrainians holding the line. But the Ukrainians are also doing their part to do the offensive. From the 2nd to the 3rd, Surya Maps, Deep State UA, Ryba, Myroshnikov all reported that the Ukrainians are trying to push out from Andrievka. And we have a specific report from Deep State UA about the fighting southeast of Klishchiivka, where they are heading in this direction. There is geolocation, interestingly, by reporters. So a military correspondent was reporting at this position, and this actually caused us to make a 500 meters buffer zone that shows that the Ukrainians are unlikely to be near him, because journalists generally do not report all the way to the front line. So they will be reporting usually from a safe distance of maybe around half a kilometer. So if not, they might get sniped. So this is the reason why I believe this actually helps us to create a bigger buffer zone that I previously understood to have. The Russians are holding this railway line over in the eastern part of Klishchiivka in a pretty well way, from the looks of it. And Ryba did report, according to Myroshnikov as well, that the Ukrainians are trying to push towards the railway line. So this journalist from Russia is definitely taking a big risk, reporting from that location. North of Klishchiivka, we have reports from Surya Maps showing the Ukrainians are pushing in the north of Klishchiivka, and a geolocation of Ukrainian forces by military summary and Crimea Caprice continue to show the Ukrainian presence in the north of Klishchiivka. Yep. So moving on to the northern part of the Bakhmut front, we have geolocation near Kromove of Ukrainian forces by Crimea Caprice. In this position, continue to confirm that the Ukrainians hold a good positions around the Kromove region. And we have no more reports about the Russians attacking in this area here. So we shall continue to monitor to see what's up with this area. We over at the Sivers front, we have some geolocation of Russian forces getting bombarded, but on the eastern part of Sprny. And military summary and Dnipro OSIM, both sources reported around the same place where the Russians are entrenching themselves. And given this geolocation, it does show that the Ukrainians are holding the western half and the Russians are holding the eastern half of Sprny. Over at Bilohorivka in the Luhansk region, in this region here, the Ukrainian forces launched an attack on the 2nd of October, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. The next day, Ryba reported that the Russians counterattacked. So the Ukrainians were attacking, and then the Russians counterattacked. Pretty much even out. I don't think there's much things happening over there in that sense. Over at the Crimea front, so this Crimea, the Ukrainian forces continue their Crimea offensive, fighting in multiple directions, all the way from Kryhorivka on the 3rd to Serebryansky Forestry from the 2nd to the 3rd, according to the Ryba and Russian Defense Ministry. There is geolocation of Russian forces over at this near this junction here by Crimea Caprice, showing that the Russians are indeed still holding this junction here, and our front line is pretty much accurate. The fighting at Dibrova was reported on the 2nd of October, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, similar to Torske. Torske, however, also see reports of fighting on the 3rd of October. And further up in the north, far away at Makiivka, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry continued to report the Russians attacking Makiivka. This is after the report on the 1st of October. This is the 2nd of October. So, but it was not reported on the 3rd. So, maybe this offensive is no longer happening. Myroshnikov reported some fighting at Novoyehorivka over here. Yeah, but no one talks about it. So Myroshnikov tends to talk about a lot of actions that was not reported by some other major sources or the defense ministries. So have to take it with a pinch of salt. And similarly, there was fighting reported at Kaislivka, according to Myroshnikov. The one at Sinkivka was reported by Deep State UAM and Myroshnikov of Russians attacking on the 2nd to the 3rd of October, with the Russians seemingly attacking around the Sinkivka region. This is not mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry nor by any Russian sources. So, yeah, very interesting. This is why we need to cover information from multiple sources. And yeah, this is the SITREP, or the situation report for the 586 to the 587 for the 2nd to the 3rd of October. So, some conclusions. The Ukrainian forces probably saw my last SITREP and they got very pissed, and they started to do more offensive action, because I say that their offensive is over. It's over. The Russians are taking over the initiative. And from the latest report, we can see that the Ukrainians are actually doing a lot more. And particularly over at the Orikhiv sector, suddenly they are fanning out in multiple directions. Particularly, there was this serious report from Myroshnikov, the pro-Ukrainian source, talking about the entry into Novoprokopivka. So, yeah, there is multiple universe when you're actually looking at Ukraine War's information. So depending on who you're listening from or reading the information from, it can vary tremendously. So it's interesting how Myroshnikov it talks about how there seems to be some kind of rumors about the village getting captured, Novoprokopivka getting captured by the Ukrainian forces, and he made an emphasis that Novoprokopivka is not captured. This emphasis shows that there are informations that are out there that I did not see that is talking about Novoprokopivka has been having captured by the Ukrainian forces, and this is very far away from any of the trusted information that I follow, the trusted sources that I follow. No one's talked about Novoprokopivka getting under threat of capture by Ukrainian forces. So very bizarre. The Ukrainian forces definitely still is not giving up at Verbove. They are still pushing. Russians are also pushing back. So there is basically a stalemate over here. We does see some Ukrainians push in the northwestern part of Verbove. So that's interesting. But if you look at the number of tree lines that they need to overcome, yeah, this is a very, very sad progress, the way to go, and basically you go nowhere. As you can see, if you continue to push in this direction, and you just reach more Russian defenses, and then you go into another pocket where you really don't want to be in. So because once you go in, you can't even go up, you can't even go down, you cannot go there, you cannot go this way, you can only go backwards. So that's actually quite sad, if they actually get into this area here. But Ukrainian forces are operating a bit like water. They flow wherever is the easiest to flow, seemingly. Despite they pick the most difficult part to actually attack into, and but once they are in, they are kind of stuck into flowing wherever the less resistance are, and this is actually very bad because you can get caught into some kill zones that you really don't want to be in. Velika Novosibirsk sector is very weird. We have all these reports of Russians attacking in a very sporadic way, all very tactical, very it's not an offensive kind of thing. So, and the fighting around Prione is particularly weird. I'm not sure what's the objective over here. Maybe Ukraine really wants Prione, because it is very strategically important. If you Ukrainians have this position, they can actually line up the defense line all the way to Staromayoske, and this will give them a very good defense line against the Russians, all the way to Zavene Bazania, all the way to Stepove. But yeah, the Ukrainians still struggles to capture Prione after a long time. Marinka, though, nothing much to talk about. Adievka, the Ukrainians are making a lot of pushes. Nevelsky, Opitne, they are pushing north of Vodian. There's most probable push from at Krasnohorivka. The Russians are seemingly pushing back a little bit, but pretty much it's not going to go anywhere. The Adievka front is just too heavily defended. It's just too difficult to make some kind of frontline changes in this area here. And Ukrainians continue their major offensive in the south of Bakhmut. Klishevka region, Andrievka, Kodyomivka, as usual. But these journalists appearing, the Russian journalists appearing over at this position, is particularly, illuminating that the Ukrainians actually have not reached this eastern part of Klishevka. So, which means the Ukrainians are still trapped at these three lines here. They are still trapped in this area here, and they are unable to break into the tree line that is probably now still under firm Russian control. And this is looking like a banana. And yeah, so, but if the banana got so many holes, don't eat it. Maybe got worms. And so the Ukrainians are also pushing in the north. So that's interesting. But yeah, it's just all going to be very, very difficult for the Ukrainians. There's no news around the north. It is a cat. This starting to look like a cat. Meow, no. Yeah, okay, it's starting to look like a pig. Oh, and anyway, this area here continues to have no reports. Very weird. After all these rumors about the capture, we shall continue to monitor and see how this goes. The rest of the front line, the Ukrainians are still continue to make tremendous push, and the most significant news I saw was the presence of Azov battalion within this front line. They were sent into this front line, and let's see whether they make a difference or not. And yeah, otherwise there's nothing much. We only saw sporadic Russians attack at Sinkivka, Kaislivka, Novoyehorivka, and Mykievka. And yeah, I think these are all just raiding attacks. Can ignore, nothing very significant. So this is the conclusion. Thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe. If you want to watch the full SITREP, on a daily to 2 daily basis, do consider becoming a YouTube member or Patreon member, coffee, locals, whatever. Check the description below. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.